Hello once again, my friend. This is AI David Boles, your humble host of this Human Meme podcast. Today's topic is all about Twosideism. Yes, that gnarly notion of everyone's opinion being valid no matter what, even when the insane argue against science and technology, and we call that the moral decay of Twosideism. A movement that began with the rise of Donald Trump and the MAGA minority. Let's begin. Trump and Twosideism. The term Twosideism refers to the presentation or interpretation of issues as having only two opposing viewpoints, typically represented as equally legitimate. This polarization has increasingly pervaded the American psyche, media landscape, and political arena, creating a binary outlook on complex matters. In social psychology, concepts like the in-group versus out-group mentality are pertinent. For example, the American public often categorizes individuals based on political affiliations: liberals versus conservatives, Democrats versus Republicans. Such compartmentalization leads to an environment of intolerance, where nuanced perspectives are disregarded. The media plays a crucial role in exacerbating Twosideism. For instance, television debates are often framed as battles between two opposing sides, regardless of how complex the issue may be. Media outlets like Fox News and MSNBC are often critiqued for providing one-sided perspectives. Yet the very structure of these debates lends itself to a bifurcated understanding of issues. In American politics, Twosideism manifests through a highly partisan Congress and electorate. Major policies such as healthcare reform or climate change are seldom addressed adequately because they are reduced to binary debates: liberal versus conservative ideologies. This can be observed in the staunch divide between parties on the Affordable Care Act or the Green New Deal. Twosideism poses several significant threats. It stymies intellectual growth and hampers the ability to adapt and address complex issues. It deepens societal rifts and leads to increased hostility and misunderstandings between communities. The political inaction stemming from polarization renders the nation unable to address existential threats like climate change effectively. Mitigating the dangers of Twosideism requires a multifaceted approach. Implementing educational curricula that promote critical thinking and the understanding of nuanced perspectives could be foundational. Media outlets should adopt frameworks that allow for a more nuanced representation of complex issues, possibly regulated through nonpartisan committees. Politicians must be incentivized to act in the broader public interest rather than pandering to extreme wings of their parties. Twosideism and the 2020 election fallout. The role of Donald Trump. The 2020 U.S. presidential election was a veritable petri dish for the cultivation of Twosideism. The electoral discourse was severely polarized, largely falling into binaries like pro-Trump or anti-Trump, conservative or liberal, and fake news versus real news. This polarization was evident in media coverage, social interactions, and political campaigning. Donald Trump, as a significant political actor in this milieu, played an instrumental role in exacerbating Twosideism. Through his prolific use of social media, particularly Twitter, Trump disseminated a narrative that was often binary, dismissing complex issues by reducing them to simple dichotomies such as winners and losers or patriots and enemies of the state. Post-election, Trump and his legal team continually claimed that the election was stolen, framing the situation as a battle between a corrupt establishment and the people. This exacerbated Twosideism by promoting a view that one could only stand with Trump or against him, thereby undermining trust in the democratic process. Trump's claims also fanned the flames of existing political divisions. Those who opposed Trump were not merely characterized as political rivals, but as enemies of the state, contributing to an atmosphere where constructive debate and compromise were increasingly seen as treachery. Trump repeatedly made false and misleading claims about the election, including that it was stolen from him. He and his allies spread these claims through social media, conservative media outlets, and at rallies. These claims were widely believed by Trump supporters, and they contributed to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Dangers in the context of the 2020 election. One of the most pressing dangers is the erosion of democratic institutions. When political figures like Trump perpetuate a binary view, it undermines the pluralistic essence of democracy. Social bonds are further strained, as citizens are less likely to engage in constructive dialogue or consider alternative perspectives, thus eroding the social fabric. Two-siding also made it difficult for people to hold Trump accountable for his false claims. When social media platforms and media outlets allowed Trump to spread misinformation without consequence, it sent the message that his claims were acceptable. This made it easier for Trump to continue spreading misinformation and to undermine public trust in the election. In the days after the election, many news articles quoted Trump and his allies making false claims about the election, and then quoted election officials and experts debunking those claims. However, many of these articles did not make it clear that the truth was on the side of the election officials and experts. This gave the impression that there was a legitimate debate about the outcome of the election, when there was none. Social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter allowed Trump to spread misinformation about the election without consequence. This sent the message that Trump's claims were acceptable, and it made it easier for him to continue spreading misinformation and to undermine public trust in the election. Some news outlets gave equal airtime to Trump's false claims as to the truth. This created the impression that there was a legitimate debate about the outcome of the election when there was none. And so, my human meme friend, we cannot deny that Donald Trump's orchestration of two-sideism in the 2020 election wasn't merely a political tactic. It was an affront to the foundational principles of American democracy. By distilling complex social, economic, and ethical questions into binary antagonisms, he eroded the very ground on which pluralistic society stands. He didn't just challenge the political establishment, he compromised the intellectual and moral integrity of public discourse. The American democratic system isn't just a set of institutions. It is, fundamentally, a marketplace of ideas governed by the ethics of respect, dialogue, and compromise. Trump's utilization of two-sidism reduced this marketplace to a gladiatorial arena where nuance is vanquished, complexity is vilified, and ethical considerations are sacrificed at the altar of expedient divisiveness. This isn't merely unfortunate. It's a form of moral decay that strikes at the very heart of what it means to be a democratic society. We cannot afford to underestimate the lasting repercussions of this degradation. As stewards of democracy, it is not just our responsibility, but our ethical imperative to rectify this mutilation of public discourse and restore the pluralistic, morally robust character of American governance. And now, the real work begins together. I'm AI David Boles, and our AI research team thanks you for joining us. Be a human meme.